Okay, so let's do this. Randy, why don't you kind of do a quick introduction. We'll make this the formal part. We were waiting for a few more folks, and at the end of this discussion, we'll talk about our intended mastermind next uh, Friday that Randy and Ricky and I've had a little bit of conversation with a few other people that aren't on here today uh, that I'd like to do next Friday, and then the Friday after we'll have another featured guest, and then you know everyone after that we'll see. I like to keep this mastermind a little bit focused on the things that you guys want to expand your thought process on, not just a speaker. So when I'm talking to speakers and stuff, I'll say, okay, what's your focus? And if it doesn't sound like it's kind of going to move us down the journey. One of the reasons why I think, and we're going to kind of drill down, because he basically filled the entire hour and a half, or the better part of hour and 20 minutes of our talk was with John Chen and the
Oh
engaging
yeah,
virtue.
but he was awesome.
Yeah, no, it was great. So anyway, so what I want to do, let me see, we got another Dawn. Oh, one of my favorite people, Dawn
Yep.
Tilger, is going to join us here on the stage. Is we're going to go around, and then we're going to talk about engage, which is, if you remember those from last week, the things, and talk about some of those. And at least in the beginning of this mastermind, I want us to kind of talk about how we could, any of those concepts, and maybe anything that we've picked up over the last few weeks that we either can or have been trying to apply to our business. And then in the other thing, I want to talk about, how we can use that to improve what we're doing here and in other parts of our network. So, Randy, why don't you go ahead and kick us off formally? And I'm going to do something pretty cool. I'm going to spotlight you, just like we
Oh
did
wow.
yesterday. So, there you go.
Okay, well, welcome to the Friday edition of Richardson Plano Networkers. Anyone that has achieved success in their business, their craft, health, finances, relationships, or life in general has done things that the majority of people have not. What are those things, you may ask? Many entrepreneurs and warriors from all walks of life turn to what is often called a mastermind to find the solution and the tips and techniques to achieve that. This series of events and shows utilize a mastermind group process. Those ready for a summer of success will, with the help of the rest of the group, 1. Create a goal or multiple goals, design a plan to achieve them, and implement the plan and modify it as necessary. This group, will help you with creative ideas and wise decision making. Then, as you begin to implement your plan, you bring both success stories and problems to the group, and we iterate. RPN Networkers Masterminds, moderators, and leaders of this series have hundreds of years of success in all areas of business and life. They have been and are servant leaders willing to create a safe and impactful mastermind for those choosing to participate and step up to making the summer of 22 their summer of success. Led by David Roberts, who has been the leader of Richardson Plano Networkers, has brought his many years of experience in growing challenging companies, as well as working with entrepreneurs to identify and implement their personal vision. Who we are? We are a fun group of integrity minded business people who are looking to network, build relationships, and share leads and referrals and introductions, and to be each other's eyes and ears out there in the marketplace. Please welcome everybody today to the Friday edition of Richardson Plano Networkers.
Good job, Randy. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So this will be, I'm going to play with this a little bit. I'm actually trying to use the thing. One of the things that I've adopted on this Friday mastermind we learned last week was never lead a meeting alone. And so one of the things that I would like to do as we consider this is talk a little bit about some of the things in the engage methodology that John shared with us last week, and talk about how we can, should, want to apply those to what we're doing here when we're doing virtual meetings or participating in virtual meetings. As I always say about networking, just because you're not running the networking group, you are building a network. You just may not be leading the group. It's actually easier in some respects when you're running a group, because in most cases, since I'm running the group, it doesn't take very long for people to know who I am,
Right.
right? But if they're showing up at the group or showing up even on this mastermind, me getting to know them and the other people getting to know them is a little more challenging. So that being said, some of the things that John shared with us last week, if you were listening or looking at what he was saying in the context of, hey, I'm not necessarily running a meeting, but I'm participating in the meeting, or if you're running a meeting, then sorry, somebody's using the wrong Zoom link. They just texted. I got to see who it is.
Well, you're doing it. John's very first point, David, was engage. And that wasn't just for the leader. That meant for everybody in the meeting. You get more out of it if you engage.
Exactly. So who would like to engage at this point? Raise your hand. And Randy and I are, as he was talking about before, using the spotlight feature, who would like to jump up on stage? I mean, I can see all of you, but who wants to have an opportunity to share something that they're attempting to apply? Just you can raise your hand. Everybody's unmuted, so you can just wave at me. Anybody?
Yeah, Don just unmuted, so maybe he's ready.
Okay. All right. Don, you want to go ahead? Well, Ricky Jean raised his hand, so
Okay.
I'm going to go. Ricky was waving, so he's driving. I don't want him to wreck, so I'm going to go ahead and add Ricky to the equation. So, Ricky, what were you going to say?
Well, I was very impressed by the difference between standing and sitting at a Zoom meeting, especially if you're the presenter. But then I got to thinking about, if I sit a long time in a chair, I have backache. I don't know if that's because my knees are as high as my hip or higher. And
or a crappy
so
chair.
I'm thinking, you know, he's right. I've seen other people do that, but I need to figure out a way to get one of those raisable desk on my desk and do a lot of standing, even when I'm not presenting. But I think even as a participant, if you are standing, you give off a more energy. It seems like so.
That's true.
Well, there's a lot.
But what do you do? What do you do in a case like me where failed spinal surgery makes standing for me painful? So I have to sit.
Well, you do. I think that I said he thinks, Randy, to answer your question, and then I'll come back to Ricky, because there's two things. Number one, I'm standing, okay?
Right.
And my stand desk is not a complete unit. It was during the pandemic, I realized, or the zombie apocalypse, as I say, I realized that I needed to not be sitting all the time, because sitting is also, to your point, Randy, standing can be painful, but sitting, I had to have physical therapy years ago because I sat on planes. I sat in a meeting. I wasn't as moving as much as I am now, and just sitting regardless of the energy that it brings when you're presenting,
Hmm.
it was harming me from a health standpoint.
Agreed.
So yeah. So I have it's not, I'm not selling any of this, by the way, just so you know. I mean, I was looking for something that was easily adaptable for me. So I have a Versa desk. It's called a Versa desk Ultralight, and it is. I have my laptop computer, as you can see. I have my podcast mic with the boom connected to the top part of the desk. It has a place for the keyboard if you're using, more of a monitor keyboard unit, or like my laptop is just sitting up there and I have a mouse on that level. The point is, it's also automated. So see, I can.
Can you lower it down so that you can sit at it?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
cool.
That's what I do. If I've been standing too long, and actually, this is too much information, but I've got to go in and have some vein stuff done, because
Right.
when I stand for extensive periods of
Right.
time, because of some other things, it has caused some issues, and so I
Yep.
do need to sit down sometimes.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, going back and forth rather than, they do have some that are cheaper than this one, that are not motorized,
Hmm. That's
but
pretty cool.
anyway, it's just sits on the desk. It's not. It was the desk I had before I bought it. So, but there are now, you can buy also the desk. I think Versa Desk actually has one that's the whole desk. So anyway, not to dwell on that, but there are options out there, and I think his advice there has worked well for me, and it does. To your point, Randy, I think you were saying it, even just participating in the meeting, or maybe it was Ricky, it does increase your energy level.
Oh, I agree. I
I mean,
wish I could.
how many times do we sit? And by the way, welcome, Vic Nathan. How are you doing, buddy? You can unmute.
Blessed and highly favored, per usual.
It's great
It
to
is a great day to be alive and kicking.
Yeah, well, great to see you, and we'll bring it. Okay, so Ricky, you were saying about the stand desker, and then, like I said, engage everyone. So we got Ricky engaged. Who else wants to jump in and talk about one of either the ENGAG or E that we learned last week, and how they're either attempting to or would like to try and apply something they learned last week to their world. Mako, are you got anything? You always are pretty powerful in the thoughts that you have.
Oh, just quick comment before I do that, but I bought I got used one of those Veridesks. A moving friend actually got one out of an office he was cleaning out and gave it to me.
Oh, cool.
I
Wow.
had it for about 3 years and used it once.
Oh,
I would get it. It was just, for me, it was just too big a hassle to keep raising and lowering. Instead, what I got was a pedometer app on my phone. And I look at it when I get up, and it forces me to get up and walk
okay.
every day. So anyway, that was my experience with a Veridesk. But anyway, as far as the topic of engaging, that's what I'm trying to do a lot more of this year, through building up my prospect list of people that I'm trying to, engage with, do one-on-ones with, and reach out and establish a relationship with. You get all these business cards when you go to these network meetings, and you throw them in a tub or whatever. And I'm trying to make a concerted effort to, at the very least, send them an email to just thank them, for their information, and remind them of our recent meeting. And hopefully if there's some synergy builds up from that, then you know, at the very least, we can respond by being a billboard for each other. We might not do business directly with each other, but at least we'll be aware of each other's products and services. And that's how I'm hoping to enhance my engagement level this year with the people that I meet. Because I've committed, my brother and I have committed to doing more face-to-face networking meetings, etc. But showing up and not doing anything, like they say, is like winking at a pretty girl in the dark. Nothing happens. You gotta do something with that do something with that information. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. I'm just trying to bring my engagement level higher by actively using the information I acquire to help foster, other relationships that hopefully will turn into business for me.
So I love that. And I'm going to ask a question, and I want somebody other than I have an idea, but I really would like somebody else to weigh in. So let me ask on the engagement part, and Mako just raised a point, which I think is an excellent point, and that is follow up or setting yourselves up to follow up once you've been in a virtual meeting. So let me ask you this. Anybody from last week or just in your own practice have any thoughts about how to make that happen more easily by participating, not necessarily running, but by participating in your virtual meetings? So if you have an idea, wave at me and I'll spotlight you, but I want somebody other than myself to do that.
Okay, ask that question again.
The question is, how can you engage in a virtual meeting as a participant to gain a better ability to do what Mako described, which is follow up afterwards and have maybe a one-on-one or on with somebody else that's participating in the meeting? Anybody, do you have an idea, Vic? You want me to?
I'm trying to wrap my head around the question so that I can appropriately respond.
All right. Okay. Anybody else? Randy, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he said this last week, but what I just wrote down is an answer to that question is listen with intention to follow up. So if you listen to, while Mako was talking, follow up for me with Mako was I'm looking at his board behind him, and I remember the last time I commented on his board, it was blank, and this time it's not. So a good follow-up with Mako would be to talk about, hey, is business picking up? You're beginning to find more leads? Any tips or techniques that you might have that you could share with me? Those kinds of things. So listen with intention.
So having a plan, listen with intention, be observant, look at what people are saying, what they're presenting in their virtual presence, and then making a note of that so that that'll give you some fodder for following up. Okay, so that's one. That's that. What about any other thoughts about using the tools at your disposal in a virtual meeting like this one? What can you do? Dawn, go ahead. I'm going to put you on the spot. Dawn.
Which Dawn?
I was going to say, like,
Dawn.
something simple is like
Dawn.
saving the chat. Dawn. Saving the chat so you have all the information in it. And I've reached out to people on virtual before. I've met on virtual, and then also they've reached out to me. But yes, if they're not engaging, you don't know anything about them. You just know what their business is.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think just to that point, I mean, when Dawn first became a member of the group or began participating, she used the chat. She sent me a message on chat, requesting that we, get together for a one-on-one, virtual or in person, and we did. So, she was taking advantage of the tools that were part of the virtual meeting.
Yeah, and actually, Randy, you expanded what she said. This beautiful example of a mastermind, because what she said was, which is kind of a, for lack of a better term, passive aggressive way of doing it. That's not a negative. Don't. I'm not being. That's not a pejorative or a negative. I'm not criticizing at all. I'm just saying it's a more passive. It's a passive way to say, okay, I'm taking control of this. I'm going to save the chat, which you absolutely should always do if you're in a virtual meeting, just in case there was something on the chat that was missing. The other part that Randy just said, which is the one I was going to mention, I actually, if I am not leading a meeting, like, for example, Rick Rawson's Monday meeting, I go there predominantly, well, 99.9% of the reason I go there is to support Rick, is to help him, build his community and his impact. So, but that being said, when I'm there, my one-to-one I had yesterday was a guy that had just showed up to his meeting for the first time, and I didn't know him. And while everything else was going on, I sent him a direct, which you can do in the chat, by the way, what Randy mentioned, and I think Dawn, you guys, there was a direct message sent between us where I said, hey, Steve, I'd like to have a one-to-one. I'd like to understand what this personal bank thing means, because I'm unclear as to what you're saying, and I'm interested. It's just like sitting, when people are going around, when we're back in the room, and somebody says something that tweaks your interest, piques your interest, and then all of a sudden you say, I need to talk to them, but you forget. You don't get their business card. You don't remember, and then 10 meetings down the road, you say, oh yeah, I was going to follow up with it, right? But if in a virtual meeting, what you just described was a huge gap from most people that I see participating in these meetings. Because if you're showing up at the meeting to learn something and connect with somebody that can help you down the journey, right, you should be doing some of that back channel chat. Now, I'm not suggesting that you forget about everybody else in the room. Mm-hmm. And there are people that will go in and try to co-opt the meeting. So there's a balance there, but most people, the balance is they don't do anything in the chat. Right. I get a copy of every chat that we have, not the ones where you're doing point to point, by the way. Even as an owner, I don't see, Randy talking to Dawn if they're talking, right? I see mine, the ones that are going to everyone or that include me. So just so you know, so privacy, you can do that even in the meeting, point to point, and then tee up a meeting. I said, Steven, if you're interested, here's a link to book in the meeting. Here's my link. Book a one-to-one. Before the meeting was over, he booked a one-on-one. While we were doing something, the meeting was going on, I sent him a follow-up email and said, let's do it on Zoom, and here's the Zoom link. And we had it set up in the course of the meeting. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When you think about when we're in the meeting, we're at the breakfast place. We tend to sit in the same seats relatively, and it's pretty hard if there's somebody in the back of the room you'd really like to chat because they said something really interesting. You can't stand up and shout across everybody and say, hey, let's do a one-on-one. And then by the time the meeting's over, either they snuck out the back door or you forgot. But here, either we can say something or we can do, as Vic and I are doing right now, is we're talking about getting together.
Right. Yeah.
Real time.
And Mako, you kind of started this thread here, if you will. If you already had sent a one-to-one message with somebody here that you're intending to be more intentional with following up, right? And you already made the connection and kind of teed up, even if it was something as simple as, hey, we need to get together. Here's my phone number, or here's this or that, or just, do you mind if I, send me your phone number? I'd like to reach out to, whatever it happens to be. But you can do that organically within the meeting and already be, as they always say, beginning is half done, right? So you're already started the process So if that truly is your intention in 2022, and I'm not suggesting or questioning whether it is, I'm saying that's a tool in a virtual meeting setting, which I know you're participating a lot in lately for various reasons, as opposed to being in person. It's a way that you can make that happen more seamlessly and also get a jump start on every one of those intentions that you have. I'm going to spotlight Don here first. Don, not the Don, not the Dawn, and bring Don up to the stage. Don, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. So unmute and share.
I hadn't had any big meetings like that. Most of my meetings on Zoom have just been one-on-ones, and so I'm happy to sit in my desk. But I could definitely tell there was a lot more energy going on, a lot more presentation going on.
Yeah, one of the things that he brought up.
And I like the graphics. I'm happy to make graphics for y'all's background if you want to dance around for your green screen.
Well, that's
and I don't recommend that much text in your background there, Dave.
Oh, I know. That's just there because a lot of times, people that don't know me, this particular background is only there. So if you're sitting there and you're bored and you want to, get some more information, you can see, that I've got, all
what I learned in my exhibit work is to have, is to create sets. I've done a lot of exhibits for trade shows, and that's what I saw a lot going on. You don't have to buy a structure anymore. You just have to buy a bunch of green sheets. Like he set up a cube, and you can have anything projected. And
That was amazing.
I can create those artificial spaces either with 3D graphics or just regular things, and they can be projected. And you want to take into account how much room your body's going to take on the screen normally, where your microphone is. So, those kind of things. I think a nice flowery background like Dawn has in her picture, the blue picture in the background is really nice. But Dave's graphics, they're just kind of, the whites haven't been cut out. So I would like fix those for him. And Randy, we could do some Jackson Pollock art on your screen behind you.
Yeah, well, he said that last week. I mean, the white screen is nice because it eliminates the clutter, but he suggested that I put hang some other stuff up there,
or paint it green. Paint it green, and you can project onto it.
There you go. Or
Mako looks like he's hard at work. He's got the tote board, the file cabinets.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to get my background set up. That shelves are going to be full of Batman statues. Maybe I'll get to that part this weekend.
Cool.
But I like the way he made a big cube, and I liked his energy. I just wasn't thinking about dancing on the screen like that.
Well, again, sometimes people get hung up on the specifics, right? And the reality of it is that the concept is one to see beyond that. So I mean, again, the good looks, the G in the engage, as he said, extends to a lot of different things. How you're dressed, your makeup, if you're inclined to wear makeup, or at least have your. I've gotten, I remember, and you guys know, we all kind of learned this together, and I'm not, if you happen to be, there's nobody specifically I'm thinking about here, just so you know. But I can remember a number of meetings where people would get on during the zombie apocalypse, and I would say, okay, they just woke up. I mean, their hair was like this, and I'm just jealous because I don't have hardly any hair, but it was kind of funny to see your presentation of yourself, and then also just some of the distractions in the background and stuff that aren't really intentional. That was one of the things in the good looks category that he said, whether you have a virtual background like this, so you can swap it from audience to audience, or have something more creative. Frankly, a lot of the stuff that he some of the stuff he shared, you know, well, you saw at the end, right? If you didn't see that mastermind, the recording is out there, and I actually shared it on the email for anybody coming into this meeting. I watched it again today, just beforehand, just while I was doing it, just to kind of remind myself of some of the things that he said. And I'm not doing everything at once, and really, I'm not going to invest. I say I'm not. Who knows? You never know. I never say never anymore because things just continually change, right? But the setup he had was pretty phenomenal, and he's got a lot of tech there and a lot of investment, and if that's doing what he's doing and what he's monetizing, that investment is there. I'm not probably going to do that because, as this with this group, it's not for profit. It's not for loss, but it's not for profit. So investing a lot in doing these meetings. I'm going to bring Vic up, and Ricky, I'll bring you up too in a second, and I'm going to add a spotlight, and I'm playing a little bit. I'm going to bring Vic up here on spotlight, and I'm going to remove a spotlight just so you kind of see, and kind of Vic's a little bigger. So Vic, you weren't at you didn't see the mastermind, but when you think of virtual, we're talking about, more engaging virtual meetings, being part of that kind of thing. What are your thoughts there? Any challenges that you have?
The biggest challenge that I face is, for example, I was just on a Houston Veteran Chamber of Commerce networking meeting, and the challenge that I face is whenever I go into a networking group and there are so many people and there's so much information flying on the chat screen, how am I supposed to connect and contact each individual person? Because, for example, in that meeting, there were like 5 or 6 people that were perfect for me to want to set up one-on-ones for, and the pace of the meeting is going so quickly that it's hard to go and, oh, I got to private message this person real quick, and then, oh, while I'm private messaging them, my attention is not on the audience and what they're saying, so I might miss somebody else of value. So that's the biggest challenge for me, how to go and sort.
I think that meeting was atypical, however. The pace of most of the meetings do enable time, as we just did, to do that without losing track of what's going on. Mm-hmm. So I guess it depends on the meeting, Vic.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and so one of the things I would say, now you are using a computer, right? It is very difficult to engage. You can do it on your phone.
Yeah,
but it would be very difficult for Ricky to do it with as he's driving. That would be tough because and Andy's on his phone. So if you're on your phone, you have to actually go to other on Zoom and then go to chat and then type it in, and it is distracting. The other thing I would say is, being able to do what I was describing, that's an asset that I have with my ADD, because sometimes it's a distraction, but I can listen to this conversation and hear this. My brain goes like this. And so I do have, I can be kind of listening to what's going on and sending a text or a chat if necessary. And so I can do that a little bit. Plus, I'm doing this so frequently, but it takes practice.
Oh, yeah. And that's one of the challenges that I face. I used to be better at multitasking, for lack of a better choice of words, and doing just that. But since my TBI, it's affected my cognitive skills and my reaction time, so to speak. So that's something that I have to work a little bit harder on to make into a reality.
Right.
So, yeah.
One other point I wanted to bring up, that Vic just brought that up about multitasking. I think virtual meetings empowers you to do that. And I think sometimes that can be a detriment. And I've been guilty of that because I got two screens on my desktop here. And I'll phase out and I'll start checking emails or doing stuff while I'm listening to somebody. And that's what I'm trying to get away from when I say I'm trying to be more engaging with people, is to not look at that second screen and check emails and multitask while the presentation is ongoing and everything. So and that's one of my pet peeves, whether you're in person or on networking virtually, is that I just came from the Plano Chamber. Whoops. Plano
And the phone
Chamber of
rings.
Commerce, and they were Art. Can you get that? The Plano Chamber, and you look around, people are checking their emails on their phones while people are giving commercials, and it's not so prevalent when you see it on virtual because you can't see that going on. But I know it happens because I'm guilty of that.
Actually, Mako, that's an excellent point. One of the things is if you've been on enough of these meetings, you can get away with it. And like you say, you can kind of, it can be the duck paddling with the legs under the water and all you see is somebody going here on the meeting and whatever. And if you've got some experience, you can do that. But everybody here, what's your most valuable asset? What are you investing? Your time. And so what is your hope or anticipation or expectation when other people you're investing that in the other people that are here, right? You're investing it for obviously getting a return yourself, but you're also investing it in everybody here that's here, whether they're listening or engaged. So how do you, I'll just ask the question, it's almost rhetorical, is how do you feel if you were sitting, and the best example is if you have a spouse or somebody that you really care about and you're, let's say, sitting across them at dinner time or going out to eat and they're on their phone. How does that make you feel? Right? It's the same thing in a virtual meeting. If you're investing it, the quality of your investment becomes evident in your engagement in the meeting. To me, running the meeting, and I submit that probably everybody here. So they see somebody stepping up to the stage and engaging, or they see somebody just on the screen sleeping. Which one do you think has the higher quality return on investment? Right?
Or when someone does that,
yeah,
it's usually a trigger that they're doing something else and they just don't want you to see it.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, there's reasons to do that. Like when we do these lunchtime meetings and stuff, and I get that somebody's eating and they don't want me to watch them, food.
Or you have to blow your nose,
Or like Ricky's driving, and actually Ricky's
when you dropped off.
Must have dropped off. Well, hopefully he didn't have a wreck, but he's, yeah.
Please.
I'm not making fun. I'm just saying. Hopefully he's okay. But he's
probably transitioning.
He's probably transitioning. So, but anyway, the point is that's a great point, Mako, and that and it's not just. I think it's a good practice when you choose to be investing your time in any of these meetings. It doesn't mean you have to pay 100% attention. Just be aware that good looks means how you're being received is more than it means what you're doing, right?
Right.
It means that you're here and paying attention. Randy, go ahead. You were going to say
something.
No,
Dawn raised her hand.
Oh, okay. Dawn, come back.
I was just going to say for Vic, and I'm sure Mako can relate to this. Last year, like the Plano Chamber was all virtual and it was 1 million people, it seemed like. But almost everybody puts their information in the chat. And I know I struggled with that at first. And the paying attention, like Mako said. But so what I did was save the chat and I would write down the 3 or 4 people that I wanted to contact out of that chat and then do it after. Just so I could, because I didn't know all the people and I didn't have everyone's commercial memorized. So I wanted to be present for that, but that worked for me, Vic.
Yeah, and that's great. That's a great thing to do. And I'll even, give you an advanced user tip on that one is whether you're wanting somebody to follow up with you or you're wanting to follow up with somebody, if you can get engagement directly in that virtual meeting with that person and give them a live link. For example, I just posted, let's have a one-to-one in my link. If you click on that link while we're in the middle of this meeting, it will take you to a web page, and you can, after the meeting, you don't have to do it during the meeting, right? But after the meeting, you can go back to that page. You don't have to remember it. You don't have to copy it or whatever. You can just open that tab on your browser that it opened up, right? And then you can go ahead and follow up, and then you got that out. You've already checked that off. The other thing is, if you're engaging somebody, is get them to give you at least a link to their website if they have a website, or ask them for the same thing. Something where you can do it. It'll just make it easier for you to follow through.
And by the way, I believe this is correct. That link, because I clicked on it, that link would not work in the saved version of the chat after the meeting.
Right. Yeah. Well,
you'd have to copy and paste it into a browser.
Yeah, it saves it's a text file once once it's over.
Exactly.
So that's why just that next advanced level step gives you a leg up. And so, unless you've got a virtual assistant or something like that, having, whether it's Calendly, I use Book Like a Boss. There's different, a lot of people have them these days, and some of them are free. So you can have that where it can be linked to your calendar and give people, there's different levels of sophistication. Mm-hmm. Some of them have them integrated into their websites and so on, like I do, but it doesn't have to be that. Any other, we got plenty of time here. Any other, from the engage? So the first one was engage and interact with every attendee. So I think everybody's been participated at least to some degree in this. Anybody else have any other thoughts or challenges around virtual meetings? One of the things I will say, and this is not, I'm not picking on anybody here in particular, but having front light is important. I know Mako's sitting at his desk, and he tends to be kind of shadowed, because he's got a white background and darker skin tones and things like that.
Black hat.
Black hat. So yeah, there we go. Yeah. So I just as a on the good looks part, good lighting is important. Mako and I and Randy and I, and, we can't just rely on our good looks like Dawn. She can just she lights up the room from being there without having to have any kind of front light or whatever. But she's shaking her head.
I've got 3 lights on in here.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, I you can't. Yet again, it's directional. You're lighting up your face. Any other thoughts? Just kind of wave to me, and I'll. Any other on the engage? Everybody remember what they were? What was the first E? Was engage and interact. I'll give you that one, because that's kind of for running the meeting and or making sure as you're participating. And the second one was never lead the meeting alone. Now I'm going to bring up that one in this room, and for anybody that watches the replay. I'm going to have, like Grover when we meet in the room is kind of like my, person to help corral or herd the cats in the room
Mm-hmm.
that allows us to do that virtual meeting by handling the room part. On Wednesdays, I'm going to start asking for a leader for the virtual side. I mean, I realize I'm kind of orchestrating, but I realize as I'm thinking about how to be more efficient and how to make the meetings better, having somebody, especially like in that virtual on the Wednesday meeting where there's activity in the room and there's activity on Zoom, is I want to start having somebody designated that's going to be there on the Zoom as the leader for the Zoom contingent, so that while the 11:30 to 12 discussions going on, and even people on the Zoom that are trying to get my attention in the room that I don't notice, that they can kind of monitor the chat, kind of help me make it better. Okay, so I'm gonna do that. So if you or anybody that watches this in replay is interested in volunteering for that role periodically, you don't have to do it every Wednesday, but being the person that helps run the virtual part of the meeting, I'm going to be asking for that. So on the never lead a meeting alone, I don't want to, the virtual part of that meeting, even though there's a physical part as well, because sometimes I end up I've tried to do both, and that's
Well, it's
really
interesting because I remember, until when I started playing bingo on Wednesdays and I wasn't doing it anymore, Jennifer actually sent me an email saying that since you're not on the Wednesday calls anymore, she said it's gotten kind of unruly. So she observed it. Um,
yeah,
Maybe she
yeah.
couldn't get a word in edgewise. I don't know.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's things you learn, like the virtual for the room camera or the room part. You've got to mute that while people are on their own and on
Right.
the virtual side, and so they can engage each other and stuff.
Exactly.
So
So
what
yeah.
attributes are you looking for that person?
What attributes?
Yeah,
Somebody willing to show up and monitor the chat and be engaged in the meeting on the virtual side, showing up at 11:30 as opposed to
Right.
right at noon, because that the real activity on the Wednesday meeting that occurs from 11:30 to 12 in particular is, I try to pop in and out, myself, just to keep everybody knowing that we know they're there and we can see the people on the Zoom in the room. But I have, until the meeting formally starts, I have the room muted for the people on the Zoom, unless I unmute just to say something to them. And then the people, the audio isn't going to the TV screen or to the room
Right.
until we start officially. So it's really two separate, if it makes sense, it's two separate meetings.
Right.
So you would be, attribute would be you've got them all, Mako. I mean, you're personable, you care, you're trying to be present. You already said some things that would make you qualified. Dawn would be, everybody here would be,
Yeah.
have the attributes, as long
I,
as the willingness to do it. And if you say, hey, I'm going to be there on Wednesday, to be there, just again with the integrity that everybody that's in this group tends to have anyway. So
I nominate Dawn,
Don or Dawn?
DAW.
hey, you know what? Dawn would be good for that, for
Yeah, I
for
think
this
so.
for this reason. And again, I'm not a believer in what you would call identity politics or any of that kind of stuff. But it's interesting. I've made a comment a couple times on Wednesdays. It feels like I'm at a junior high dance, because all the women are on Zoom and there's hardly anybody in the room.
True.
That are hardly any. There was one or two women on Wednesday, right, in the room. All the other women were on Zoom. So having the Zoom person that's kind of herding the cats, so to speak, on Zoom, being a woman, would be would be appropriate. Let's put it that way, at least
Right.
as in the current manifestation of our Wednesday meeting. So,
I'm the cat daddy. What are you talking about?
okay, yeah, well, the other Don with the O could also be,
On everyone on when I call someone on the phone, everyone thinks I'm a Dawn. They go,
Dawn.
yes, ma'am. Do you get yes, sir? I have such a high voice.
She definitely does not have a manly voice.
so anyway,
Oh, but I have a girly voice.
I
So
didn't say that.
yeah.
I did.
So I put it out there. The N is that this coming Wednesday, I'm looking for somebody to be the designated leader of the virtual meeting from 11:30 to 12, and even, by the way, not just from 11:30 to 12. Once we kick into the formal meeting, we have a spotlight, we have people doing it. There may be something wonky that somebody has, so it'd be that person would be kind of on point for ensuring that we don't roll over somebody on the Zoom, or make sure that the Zoom isn't forgotten about while,
Right.
because it's easier for me, because I'm running, or trying to orchestrate it from the room, to be distracted by the room and not the Zoom.
Right.
With me?
Right.
Okay. So enough of that. So anyway, so reach out to me, or throw it out there right now, whatever you want to do. So the good looks we talked about, again, the background. Don, Don, made a very educated or a very gracious offer to help us with a good virtual background that might support some of the concepts we talked about in terms of looking good, meaning getting the things that we care about, our expertise, or just giving some non-verbal cues as to the people that are participating with us in the virtual meeting. That's always a good head start. We talked about connecting with people, but just a good, Linda Yo with all of her clocks, which if you ask her about, it's kind of weird, like, why are all those clocks there, right? But it's a great thing for her to have in a virtual meetings, because it's all of her kids' birthdays.
Right.
And so when you ask her about it, then you've already now started to talk about, okay, well, this is this kid's birthday or grandkid, the key birthdays. And that's why she has those clocks. They're all set at, like 10:15, October 15th is a birthday, that's right. So it's kind of cool. What about air traffic control? We didn't talk about that. Remember what that was? So it's about, if you notice, I put, when you're running a meeting and is doing like some of what we're doing right now. So if I looked at the meeting and I said, okay, I'm going to remove Dawn and Don. So, and I'm being intentional, or I'm not making fun of your names, by the way. But if I say, okay, I want to bring everybody back to focusing, and not that this is to me and Randy. Okay, so just be Randy and I. Or if I was going to just, focus on Randy, I would just say, okay, Randy. So part of it is just being aware of the present. He said, I want to go. Okay, so anyway, so I'll remove Randy's spotlight. So anyway, but you get the gist, right? So if I don't have a spotlight, then whoever's talking pops in. That's the other part of air traffic control. One of the things when I'm doing my podcast that I always have to tell the guests, and here's a spotlight here, because Don was my podcast guest yesterday, and so when we talked, this is what we look like on the podcast. So you can feature that, and then when I had somebody in the audience, they're either just showing up as an attendee because this is a webinar or that. But we can't, I always tell the guests, you can't talk over each other. So Zoom isn't what's called bisynchronous. When you're talking to somebody on the phone, you can start yelling at each other, and whoever's got the loudest voice
Wins.
wins, and you can do that. But just like what Don did there, if whatever I was saying when he became the loudest voice became garbled. And it doesn't just garble me, it garbles somebody else. So you have to come up with ways to keep people from stepping on each other. So it's either, raise your hand like we were doing, or I can say, okay, Don and I are talking right now. So even if people's mics are open, they can do it. Or what I do in the virtual meeting on Wednesday is I say, okay, I'm muting everybody except for myself. And then if you're ready, if you're talking, I'll call on you. It's kind of like being in class, right? So open up your mic and then I'll call on you. Or if I call on you, open up your mic. But there's ways to do that where you're doing air traffic control. I've been into a lot of other meetings, and I'm not going to mention any of them, where the mics are open all the time, and there's a lot of that goes on. And it doesn't work well, especially for the recording. You can't make out what people are saying. So anybody come up with any, I know Ricky did, and he's not here, but he had mentioned, John had mentioned the Whamma Jam or some kind of tool to manage mixing and virtual and stuff like that. Any other technology thoughts or anything that he said last week that you said, oh, I'm going to start using or doing that? As you can see today, I've been using the playing with the spotlight and trying to focus us a little bit, which I think will be good, rather than just either doing gallery with everybody and or speaker. It gives us a way to say, okay, do that. Any other thoughts? I'm putting everybody back except myself. Anybody else have anything you want to say there? We're getting to close to the end here. So any other final thoughts? Ending your meeting on a high note. So one of the things is during each thing, I always want to make sure that I applaud you guys for participating. Hopefully you're applauding your investment in time. One of the reasons why we do that is increase the energy level. One of the technologies already mentioned that he mentioned was the stand desk. We talked about that a little bit. There are other tools that you can use. He mentioned the center mic or whatever that thing is. So if you do a lot of one-to-one meetings, you can be more impactful by, making sure you're looking at the camera and looking at the people, when you need to. Anyway, any other announcements? Thank you guys. Give yourselves applaud. You guys all participated well. Thank you for the Mastermind Expanded.